Have you ever seen anything like that that you could not explain
Yeah.
based on our current technology?
Yeah. So I'm going to start by saying that I had heard those interviews and I thought they were crazy. I was like, man, these guys are going to make the F-18 guys look crazy. Like, I can't have that, you know? So, and it's not that I'm not a believer of that it could exist. I just didn't believe them. And not because they're not credible, but because it's hard to believe, right? It's hard to believe that they could encounter something like that. So that's my belief. Going in through all my flights, I never looked for stuff. I never thought I would see anything. And then I think it was maybe 2 years before my retirement, I was actually doing an in-house BFM engagement, a basic fighter maneuvering, dogfight with one of my squadron mates out over the Gulf of Mexico. And I was pardon the use of hands, but I was coming up, and he was at my 1-2 o'clock, and it was driving aft, and I saw something just go right by my cockpit. Uh, in my head, it was a kind of a white orb, just kind of goes right by me, and instinctively I ducked, thinking it's a bird, and then I looked in my HUD and I realized I'm way too high for it to be a bird. So then my logical brain that thinks I'm not crazy, I'm not one of those crazy F-18 guys, it's got to be a glare off the canopy. So I just completely dismiss it. And then my wingman says, "Did you see that?" And I went, "I saw something." He's like, so he called and knock it off, and he says, "I'm going to chase it." And I'm like, I have no idea what we're chasing, but okay. So he continues out my six. I continue pulling around. We had our radars out. We had a captive, air training missiles, the sidewinders that don't actually shoot. So we had the heat-seeking missiles out looking for anything. Couldn't find anything at all. And so now I'm thinking, okay, it's probably a weather balloon, maybe something that just is in the atmosphere, just floating around. We just passed it. And the whole way back to New Orleans, I'm thinking like we just completely wasted this training mission, over a weather balloon or something. And we get on the ground, and my wingman explains it to me and says that this thing went past my jet, turned, and then followed me. And he initially had asked, like, "Did you put out flares?" And I was like, "No, I didn't have any flares in my aircraft," because he saw something bright kind of come out the back of my jet, but then it turned, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. So then we sat in the debriefing room with models, and we're trying to like, okay, if we're moving this fast through the air and something's stationary, like we were trying to figure out how to debunk this thing, and we just couldn't figure it out. We pulled in a couple other guys. Another guy who was a Top Gun grad comes in and says, "Hey, I got a buddy that works for the Office of Naval Intelligence, and there's a whole task force at the Pentagon tracking this stuff. There's a form you can fill out." We're like, "Really?" So we went into the skiff, and we found this form. We filled it out, put in our narrative and all the information they asked for, and we sent it, not thinking anything about it. And then the next day, a guy from the Pentagon calls and says, "Hey, I want to give you and your whole squadron a classified briefing." And we're like, "Okay." And my commanding officer comes to me and says, "If I see little green men in this brief, I'm just gonna flip." But spoiler alert, there's we didn't see anything definitive of aliens, but the bottom line is that incident kind of inspired the beginning of Unknown Rider, because that Unknown Rider at the beginning is more like another article I'd read about orbs that have been circling Navy ships off the coast of San Diego, and I saw it on online news. I think it was like, I don't remember which online military thing, with the Drive or something like that. But there was a really interesting article, and I was like, that's interesting. And then when I had my incident, I thought, okay, well, if it's not aliens, what could it be? And so I started asking myself that question, and that's kind of what inspired that whole story.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I always, I never thought they were like, little green men from
Yeah.
outer space. My hunch at the beginning, after I listened to like the Commander Fravor interview,
Yeah.
because that guy just seems legit. Like
Yeah.
he is like not playing around,
Yeah. And when you listen to him, you just go, yeah, those guys are not the kind of people that would just make stuff up.
Yeah. And then he's got the targeting pod
Yep.
footage as he's describing it. So, there are things out there that we don't understand.
Yeah.
And I wondered if it was potentially some advanced military technology
Yeah.
that maybe like from the deepest like bowels of DARPA,
Right.
and they want to like maybe signal to the whole world
Yeah.
that, hey, look at, we have these devices that defy physics as you know
Yeah.
it. That would be a pretty epic way to
Yeah.
do that, to just put it in people's minds. But again, it's just me sitting here
Yeah.
theorizing. I
Yeah.
really have no idea.
And that's, unfortunately, that was the gist of the brief that we got, is that we just don't know.